Hey guys, I have succeeded here in creating a miniature loan army. Let me show you what this looks like. So here we go back into Football Manager. We have a total of 53 players out on loan. When this current season started, we had only one. And so we've dumped like a whole ton of these guys out there. Let's see, it should give me some contract information. No, it's just going to give me their wage information and stuff like that. I don't believe I can find any loan specific information here, unfortunately. But the interesting thing is that when we look into these players, what we're going to find is that many of them are earning us money. So Lato, who we recently signed, is not only making us the full, almost the full amount of his contract, but also a whole bunch in fees. The same is true for a couple of these other guys. Let's see who else we can find. I think that is true for Stoichkov as well. Yeah, so we're getting the full contract amount plus $300,000 a month, whether he plays or not. And that's kind of what's happening with most of the players, not with everybody. So Diondrena Bellio, for example, his contract, if I remember right, is only for the contract amount and does not have a paying monthly fee. We tried to get one and nobody would give it to us. So sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. Ricardo Pepi, who was out on loan at the beginning of this save, I haven't played with him at all. He's out on loan again, and we're making his not only his full wages, but we're also making $235,000 a month in both paying and unused monthly fees, so he can go over and play for Portland, right? So you kind of get the idea here. This is the way that you use loans, not necessarily to develop players, but rather to develop the bank book and to make money passively in Football Manager. So you don't have to sometimes even play the player at all. You can just let them go out on loan, let them develop, and then when it's time to sell them, you sell them and get additional money after loaning them out for a large amount of money. Isn't it a wonderful thing? Isn't it a wonderful game? The question that I know you have is how do you figure this out, and what players give you this opportunity and what players don't? So we'll go take a quick look at this and see. A lot of these guys I've already put out for loan and they're not on loan. We have a lot of players here on the B team, and like I said, we have 53 or so that are currently out on loan. The way that I figure this out is I'll look at the transfer value of the players. Now, we're not going to worry about first-team players who are on the B team temporarily so that they can be match fit or whatever. I'm not worried about players like that. We're more worried about guys like Luca Netz. So I mentioned in a previous video the rule of 192. You take the lowest amount listed for transfer value, divide that by 192. That will give you more or less an idea of how much the computer will be willing to pay. You then subtract out the wage. So if the number you get is higher than the wage, you can loan them out for full wages. And then the number that's left over is, in theory, the amount you can ask for in additional fees. It works, but it doesn't always work, right? I don't know the exact success rate. I'm guessing probably around 70 to 75% of the time. In other words, if you want to have 100 players out on loan earning money, you're going to need to have maybe like, I don't know, 140, 150 players that you try this with to be able to get 100 players that fully go through. So in the case of Luca Netz, we gave it a try earlier, and as you can see, he is not on loan. He's currently at the club. This is what we do when that happens, right? So we go over here to transfer and offer to clubs. There's two options that we have when we go to the loan options. The first thing is that we could just sort of look at this and do the math and figure out what we want for the paying monthly fee and the unused monthly fee, as well as the 100% paying percentage. The other thing we can do is look at this and eyeball it. So I know that 60 million divided by 192 is going to be more than 360,000, right? I know that not because I'm a math genius. I know that because I've done this a lot with this game. So we're going to put this at 100%. Now we can click the lock or we could not click the lock. It doesn't necessarily matter that much. As in, if you click this and make this red, chances are that the computer will come with some like totally ridiculous offer for him anyway. So you don't gain a whole lot by clicking that. It just means it's an extra click or two for you, right? For paying monthly fee, what we want to do though is unspecified, and unused monthly fee also unspecified. Now that means that instead of like doing the math behind it and figuring out approximately what the computer will probably give you, you're just going to put them out there and sort of see what comes in, and then you can make a decision as you want. In this case with Luca Nets, I think this is the 3rd or 4th time I've tried it with him. I'm not expecting to get any offers. I'm not sure what it is. He's not a poor player. He's just not quite good enough for our squad for the time being. And then we sort of send him out and see what happens. Now, if we look on the other spectrum here, so Kim Jong-won has a worth of 0. We're not going to try to loan him out. It's pointless. They're not going to pay for any of his wages. They're not going to pay anything. We probably couldn't pay them to bring him on since he's 40 years old. He's gotten slower and he's deteriorating as a footballer. So he's going to stay here until he retires, which should be pretty soon, I figure. A lot of these other guys who have a low amount, I mean, even if their low amount of transfer is 10,000, 12,000 or whatever in whatever currency you're using, it's not high enough for us to consider doing this. I mean, even if it's like around the 100,000, that's probably not going to be high enough for us to make this consideration. 200,000, remember, would mean a wage of maybe like 1,000 per week. So maybe for Alam Japar, we could like try it and maybe get the full wages back because he's on 675 a week. But it's really not worth it. That in general is not worth the time and the effort required to put the whole thing together. I recommend ignoring a lot of these guys. If you're like me and you have a whole bunch of really low value players who honestly are never going to hit the first team, like these guys who are 20, this guy who's 40, but he's a different story. This guy, Matt Dara, who's 21, and I mean, this is actually pretty good. Now, he's never going to really hit the first team. If you have something like that, what you really want to do is probably just sell them, right? So you can offer him out. We're going to sell him. See what happens, see if anybody takes him. And for some of these guys, I mean, if they're really low worth, like this Denis Novak, who I don't think anybody's going to come get. I mean, he's only 16. But this is the sort of player you should consider releasing and maybe even releasing outright. So when I look at this guy, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to start him. It's clear that nobody else is really that interested in him. Since he's already been here on the club, I'm going to keep him here, and he's so young anyway. Something might change with his value. But for a lot of those guys, you don't really want to touch it. It's not really going to be worth it. Now, the transfer values that you're looking at, the stuff that you really care about is the big stuff, the stuff that's, you know, in like the tens of millions or higher. That's where the sweet spot is, and that's where it's likely, as you offer guys like Alesi out to clubs, it's likely the case that they're going to end up commanding some sort of offer, and that you're likely going to end up getting money for having him out on loan, and that's the point. Sorry guys, Ricky J. Jones is also in this category, and it's going to be the same sort of thing. We're going to try to loan him out again and see if we can't get 100% of his wages and then a little bit of a bonus. And what happens if the computer doesn't give you 100% of the wages, right? So there are two things that'll happen. One is that it will come along with an offer that's a slight low ball offer. You can do the math and it might get close. I wouldn't worry too much about that. You could just take it. If they come with like an offer of 0 or no offer at all, you can try to like lower the amount, the percentage of their salary that you want them to cover. It might work. Chances are, though, that it might not work, honestly. I mean, it doesn't work that much, but you can give it a try. If it doesn't work completely, you're going to have to eat the contract for at least some of these guys at some point in time. That's why I say the success rate on this is probably around 70 to 75%. It's not 100%, and it wouldn't be that realistic if it were 100% success rate. If that's the case and the guy's been around a little while, maybe you think about selling him on. And, you know, if you can have him on the B team and it doesn't bother you that much, just leave him on the B team for a while and see what he can do. Maybe he can help the B team win a cup. After you've had these players on the B team for like a year and they have stats behind them and the computer knows who they are and stuff, you might find it a little bit easier to sell them. You might want to make sure, though, that you remember who these guys are and mark them in some way so you know that this is the guy that we're trying to sell on. Anyway, there you go. That's the way that you set up a loan army. With a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of work on this, you can end up with 100 or depends on the limits of the season you're playing with. Mine is 100, so I could theoretically end up with 100 players out on loan, each of them making money for the club, and some of them making very large amounts. as you can imagine, that would be very good for the bottom line of the club. It would be incredibly good, and that means that it's easier then to make big transfers and get even bigger players in the future who then can go through the cycle again. There you have it. Hope that was helpful. I'll talk with you again later. Bye-bye.